Hello and welcome. My name is Adrienne Goss. I'm an associate professor at Clark Atlanta University. I'm joined here by 3 doctoral students who worked with me in some capacity on a grant-funded project called SCORE. SCORE stands for Schools and Communities Organizing for Racial Equity. This project launched in Rhode Island in collaboration with the Center for Youth and Community Leadership in Education, or CYCLE, and it was supported by the Spencer Foundation. We worked in partnership with parents and community organizing groups, as well as local school districts. My Rhode Island team led a small group of caregivers and youth through a participatory action research project for approximately 1 year. The caregivers and youth learned to conduct research in communities to help them determine what areas of educational equity they wanted to advocate for in their school districts. The results of that research was then used to develop a scorecard of educational equity indicators. In the midst of this project, I relocated to Atlanta with tons of data from my Rhode Island work, and I needed to quickly develop that into some publications. So that's where this group of students comes in. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and to share what it was like to jump into a project that had already started and what their role was in carrying this work forward.
Hi, my name is Jay Kennedy, and I am a second-year PhD student at Georgia State University. My role in the SCORE project, I came in initially, and I was a little overwhelmed with all the information, reading the Jamboards and finding out what SCORE was, and then learning how to systematically search scholarly articles. And so that was one of the most valuable experiences that I had through this process, was learning how to find the articles, how to put them into the Excel documents, and then being able to critically analyze that evidence and do a thematic analysis. Additionally, I was able to go to my first professional conference in the PhD program and sit at a round table, which was very exciting for me. I was super, super nervous. However, everything really worked out fine. We got more information on where we could go with our paper, and we were also able to give other people advice about theirs.
Hi, my name is Whitney Ziegler. I'm a second-year PhD student at Clark Atlanta University in the School of Social Work. I supported in the research design and also research practice with the participants. And I believe that my most valuable aspect was being able to directly impact and be impacted by the research participants, and also being able to attend events firsthand.
My name is Kunle Lukman Adebayo. I am a second-year student at the Whitney M. Young School of Social Work PhD program. I provided some support on writing the literature review as well too. So I did also do article searches and being able to look for articles that would connect to the participatory action research. So it was interesting, just like Jay said, to be able to look in there. And I think I would say to an extent, I'm an expert now in looking for keywords and certain things to be able to look for.
Give some clarity here about, because each of them, even though they were doing literature reviews and doing different work, they all actually had you all had a different focus. I'd like to go into a little bit more detail about what you actually were focusing on and what that was like for you.
We focused in on co-construction and what that really looked at like. And like you just said as well, the keywords were everything. And so narrowing down that search all the way to like, what are we looking for? Are we looking for educational articles about like particularly in education? Are we looking particularly within health? Are we looking particularly within nonprofit sport organizations? Because it was a wealth of information on participatory action research, but it was in all different fields. And so narrowing that down. And then I think we came to a certain point where we were like, okay, is this like co-construction? Is this co-ideation? Like, where are we going with it? So that particularly was our part in coming up with the thematic analysis about what were we noticing, like what were the tensions and challenges with PAR. I think that was very interesting for me as well.
Being able to narrow it down to the exact that we're looking for, because with us, we're looking at parents advocacy, so which meant that we had to look for participatory action research, but also had to do with the schools.
This is interesting to me to hear, because I've done lit reviews and searches for so long now as a professor. I don't think about how you think about searching for a keyword. Like I I just kind of know what I'm looking for, and if it's right or if it's not, then I just move on. But I remember giving you like clear instructions, don't look for this, and then a month later I was like, go back and find all those things that I told you not to look for.
And I went right in my closet to that red folder and was like, I got them.
Yeah. So it's very iterative, right? Like this is a process that there's not a straight line, like, step 1, step 2, step 3, but we kind of have to figure it out as we go. That's really challenging for me to lead you through that because I don't want you to be frustrated, but also I know if we're kind of hitting the walls, like we haven't quite gotten where I need us to go, and sometimes we have to shift gears. And so I appreciate you all just kind of rolling with me in that.
That's the value in it, was learning for me, was creating that Excel document and then keeping up with all of those articles because you never know when you're going to go back to it.
Whitney had a unique experience. Both of you were like my big time research writing people, and Whitney did some of that too, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about the nonprofit org that we worked with and what that was like.
Absolutely. So the nonprofit organization that we worked with was already very much boots on the ground, involved within the community. And so we were able to go in and kind of work as liaisons and consultants to gather more information about how they can improve upon their processes long term to better support not only that community, but any other communities that they happen to work with. We were able to create like a research design process to figure out how to best gather that information for unbothered or uninterrupted feedback. So trying to create that feedback loop that is involving the community and also involving the people who are conducting any sort of research or any sort of service to the community to be able to best support everyone overall.
And so this was important for me to look for ways to have these kinds of involvements because, like I said, you all kind of came in the middle of this project. You didn't have the benefit of working with the community members back in Rhode Island. And so I was thinking of how can I make sure that the students I'm working with here have some exposure to working with community members and conducting research and building relationships and what that process looks like. And that's really the role that Whitney was able to play. I want to talk about what it was like to write with me or just writing period, what that process has been like for you and what you got out of it.
I think that the writing experience with Dr. Goss was very fluid. Like she was very involved. You were willing to give feedback where it was needed. You were able to give suggestions when I was at first straying off the wrong path. Like, hey, let's narrow it back into this focus and be able to give that input so that I could redirect and then also being able to edit in real time. It felt like a very collaborative process. And to me, it kind of uplifted exactly the research that we had just been doing because we wanted more collaboration. We were encouraging for community organizers or community nonprofits to be more involved and involve the people that they are working with the process. And it was a very collaborative process. And it was supportive because, I'm someone who learns by doing. So being able to be corrected in the moment or in the same segment versus later down the line, it was great.
Oh, yeah. That's all good to hear. Sometimes I don't know. It's like am I stressing them out by adding all this?
It was helpful though, because even with the search, with the article search as well, too, using the Excel and you going in there, putting some in yellow, red. Okay, this is because that's helpful, right? If you put some in green, and I look at it, I was like, okay, she likes this one. Then okay, what are those things that were in that search, right? What was in there that worked or that looks like, okay, she likes it, then it helps me to know what else to look for.
Oh, yeah. The color coding was really helpful, especially this was my first time transcribing any audio. That was an experience. It was an experience. When you told me, it takes a lot longer than you think it does, I kind of was like, oh, yeah, of course, it'll take, double time. It takes probably, quadruple time, but you get faster and faster as it goes on. And now I'm I look forward to transcribing audio when the time comes again, because I feel like that's a skill that just gets better with more practice.
All right, so you all are kind of touching on this question that I have about what did you find most valuable. Are there other things that you might want to add to what was really valuable about working on this project?
Going to that conference added some more value. Coming back into the professional world of academia and not really knowing and not being sure and being nervous, and then showing up into I believe we went to this AESA, and it was a completely different field. And so you meet more people speaking out loud in front of people with confidence about what you're writing and what you know, and then being able to take in that feedback, but then also seeing other people present in those same spaces. It gives you like that much confidence where I was like ready to go into like my next conference, but I was always excited about that first conference. Like I got to Georgia State and I was still like, yeah, I did this at Clark. I did this. This is important. I felt that very valuable, and you set me on my way.
I love that conference. It's the American Educational Studies Association conference, AESA, as she said. I thought it would be a great place for you, and you did fantastic. And even some of my colleagues afterwards, like, oh, your student did so well. And so I was really proud of you. I was really glad that you were able to go.
I got to attend the local community nonprofit organization that we worked with hosts like a community-wide session that they open up to other community partners and people just to come and visit and learn more about their processes, how they operate, how they uplift and support the community. It was really interesting because we got to see panelists from the actual community as well as other people who've just been involved in the organization give their 2 cents. We went on a tour of the community that we'd be working in. And for me, that was really important because I come from a community development background. I come from working in nonprofits with people and in spaces where you really get attuned to the community. So seeing that work was being implemented and then knowing that they were looking to further drive that point home of how to involve community and how to involve others was really beneficial to me and really connected me to the project's purpose and to what we were trying to achieve.
In the early days of my career after college, I did work in a research institute where I was collecting data in the field. So being able to now look at what that looks like on the outside, analyzing data, being able to read all of that, making all that connection and all of that, I think is very valuable for me, kind of like putting me in a point where I'm able to see things from different sides.
What do you all think about the role of community members in research, or like what role they should play, or how to work with community members as a result of the work? Because you're kind of hitting on this next question in my mind. It's like, what is the role? Like, why should we involve them? Should we involve them? And if so, why should we involve them in the work that we're doing?
So yes, what you bring might be very valuable, and you might be able to actually tweak it. You might still be able to bring in what you think, but also with their involvement, they can, get to show you their own part, right? And as professionals, we just think we know everything that they need. Or when you look at the research says this, research say that, but what's happening on ground as well too. And that's the parts that the community members can bring into it.
I'm a huge supporter of research with, not research on. And I never want people to feel as if they're being studied or just being examined through a lens, especially when it comes to certain sensitive topics. Like, you do want them to feel collaborated with. You do want them to feel supported and engaged in the research, because who cares about it more than the people who are living this life every day, not just the people who are coming in to observe. And so I think the more community partners should be more engaged or more willing to engage people and support them in the research process, because that can shift the entire focus and also give you much greater depth than you even imagine.
We wrote about what that's like to work with community members and try to conduct research with community members, because this is what this project was all about, and all the tensions that come from that. Because it's like, yes, we want to work in partnership with you, and then when you actually get down into the nitty-gritty of it, there's all sorts of challenges that come with that. I'm going to ask a question about what skills you might take from this into your own work. But also, I want to elevate the fact that it's not easy. It's easier said than done, and there's a lot that we found in our own in the project that we did in Rhode Island, and did our own additional research, and then the literature that you looked at that highlights all the complexity of doing that kind of work.
That first one, that started my civic advocacy journey, to where I ended up going to my neighborhood association meeting. I literally went home and I was like, okay, where do I live? How can you live somewhere but not know where you really live? You don't live in Buckhead, you live on the outskirts of it. what are the real problems that are talked about in this meeting, like what really matters. And then to me, going to run for my child's school board and then being the person that advocates for the parents, but then now having to listen to all of these parent concerns, but then not seeing the people show up because of time constraints, resources, all of those challenging things that we actually read about. It's straight volunteer time. It takes a lot in the commitment. And so to understand like that both sides is so important. So that's what I took from it personally.
I don't think I've heard you say all of that before, that as a result of going to that meeting, you did all these other things, like the exposure that you had there. That's amazing.
It changed, like it did a 360 for me.
That's like amazing.
You can't say you want to be this person if you don't know.
What would you say is kind of like the most common concern or difficulty with working, with the community?
I don't know if there's one that stands out so much as I think one of the big things that we saw in our data was like who decides what we're doing, like who's making the decision. And so we had, all these things that we had decided because we wrote the grant as the researchers, right? And our staff, we wrote the grant, we designed the project. And so we kind of brought it to this community, like to these people, and we're like, would you like to participate with us? Here's what we have in mind. And so we still wanted them to feel like they have some power in determining the direction. But at the end of the day, we still brought the grant, we still brought the design. And that was a challenge for us, like we continue to wrestle with, because how do we start from the bottom, start from the ground up when, we don't want to waste people's time. People are busy. They have families, they have jobs. They don't have time to construct grants with us and write grant proposals and design and do the design and those sorts of things, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the labor that we take on in the interest of supporting community members also takes away a lot of their agency in deciding what we're actually going to do. And so that's one of the biggest challenges is who decides how this, like what this even is, and then those decisions that we continue to make along the way throughout the project. Any other skills or insights that you all have that you could take into your work, that you have taken into your work or your lives, or that you see yourself taking into your research in the future?
I think it gave me a new direction. Like, again, having worked in youth civic engagement and youth nonprofit before now, we would do a lot of work in communities. We would have our students walk in the community being immersed in it, but we never looked at it as in a gathering information, gathering stories. It was more so of just like, hey, these strangers are here in this community doing what we came here to do versus being led along a journey, being shown the experience that the people wanted to show us, and gathering their stories, hearing their experiences, their connection to a street corner, their connection to a building or anything like that. And so in my current work, I have started whatever resources that we share with anyone, I try to make sure that me and my coworkers are actually going and visiting the space ourselves, living that experience, trying to get a better feel for it so that we can at least speak from our firsthand experience to share that information. And it's not something that I had done before.
Being in management, knowing that certain things are not just, you making decisions for how these things affect other people's lives, but also including them in whatever tools and interventions that we're designing.
Anything else that you want to share before we get ready to wrap up, or any other questions you have for me or for each other?
I think I just want to say thank you. Thank you for, I guess, birthing a new researcher.
Yes, I would echo that as well, too. Say thank you, even though, you brought us in when you did, but we were still able to, one thing that you did for me that I was very appreciative of was you taking me back, even though I came in at a certain spot, but you gave me all that I needed to be able to see where this is coming from, and it helped make sense as to where I was with it. So I wasn't just thrown in the middle of it, but I was kind of, educated on, well, this is where this started from, this is where it's coming from, and that helped to be able to make that connection. And see,
that orientation.
Right? To, you're not just being in the middle of it and say, all right, okay, what do I need to just gather in here and just bring up these articles, but being able to make that connection, okay, this is where this started from. This is the goal. This is the essence of it. And especially, being somebody who wants to work towards, the disparities and, racial inequalities and all of that, and seeing the goal of where this is going and being a part of that. So I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
in closing, I want to thank each of you for taking the time to be here, for taking a chance on this project that you got thrown right into the middle of, and for trusting me to do the best I could to lead you through it. I really appreciate you all embracing the opportunity to work with me. Even though the project is coming to an end, we can continue to do things together. And so I hope that you will reach out if there's ever anything that we can do together that you feel like I would be a value add on. And that's it for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.